Everyone good? All right, Adam, go ahead.
Hi, Coach. Adam with Tiger 24/7 Sports. Talk about the new transition to being a special teams coordinator and how that has been going for you so far.
Well, it's great. I'm excited for the opportunity. You know, Coach Prime to be able to trust me with that position and put me in that role, which is a critical role for our football program. You know, just lets me know that my hard work's paying off. Lets me know that I've developed that kind of trust from him to get the job done. And I've embraced the role. I'm excited to work with the guys I'm working with. You know, the kickers and punters and snappers. We've got some talent coming back, and I'm just excited to be able to be a part of that. And I think we brought some good pieces in that are offensive and defensive players that are going to help us in some critical roles. So yeah, I'm excited about it and embracing it, and I think it's going well so far.
David, up with you. I feel like, what is the biggest difference between the version of coach that you were with Jackson State and the coach that you have now going into 2025 and year 3?
Well, through my experience as a head coach, we all get more comfortable as we get more experience doing things. I think Coach is I've seen his growth as a head coach. He's gotten better every year. And also here, I think the support system is allows him to be the head coach. When you're at different schools, it's no different than when I was coaching high school football in Georgia. When you're in a smaller school and you don't have as much, much of a support system, you have to wear more hats. When you get at a bigger situation like we have here at Colorado, you're able to focus more on the duties of being a head coach. And I think he's been able to do that. And I think he is. Done a great job of like growing and just becoming, seasoned veteran head coach. And it's been, I'm just glad I'm along for the ride.
Where does that comfort level show up?
Well, I think it shows up in how he deals with the staff and how he deals with the players, and how he, just handles the day-to-day operations. It's just a situation where I can see him. He's more comfortable, every year dealing with the different things that come up as being a head coach. The toughest part of being a head coach is not dealing with players; it's dealing with adults. And I think he does a great job of dealing with his coaches and dealing with the support staff and everyone. And I can just see the growth in those areas.
Brian, go ahead.
Hey, Coach. Brian Howell, Daily Camera. Kind of a lighthearted question for you, but Coach was excited about Buck Buchanan. He's going to be able to put the ball through the end zone. But are guys like Ben Finnesseth maybe a little bit disappointed because he brings a lot of energy on that kickoff team?
Well, you know what? I think we can figure out some kind of deal to reward whoever gets down to the end zone first. I told him, I said, I don't know if there's going to be a lot of tackles, a lot of plays. We don't win a lot of tackles, a lot of plays. The other day was the first day that Buck really got to show his skill level. We knew what he could do. We saw it on film. But, we had him kicking in the indoor, and he was kicking off from the 35 and putting it through the upright. So, I think there may be a fair catch, free kick situation at Colorado coming up, So we're excited about that. But yeah, I got to get with Ben and come up with some kind of reward system to see who can just get down to the end zone first.
And then I want to ask you a follow-up, more of a serious question, but guys like Ben and Brendan Gant we saw last year, how valuable is it when you have guys that really love that job of special teams, that really embrace it and want to be great as a special team?
Well, you know what? It's a great situation to have a guy like Ben and then Gant last year who embraced their role on the football team and took pride in special teams. And so many guys they get focused on their offense and defensive position. They don't realize how important special teams is to get to the league. Coach Prime tells them all the time, if you're going to go into the NFL and play, you're probably going to have to play on special teams first. And I think we've gotten a lot of better job of some of our mainline starters understanding that and realizing that. But certainly a guy like Ben, it brings that energy, brings that pride and commitment, and can be a full-core guy for us. Really helps us, and from a leadership standpoint, he gives us that leadership. People talk about on offense, the quarterback's the leader. On defense, maybe a linebacker or a safety's the leader. Nobody really talks about special teams leaders, but Ben's that kind of guy for us. you know. And I think if he keeps working hard and doing the things he can do, he can be recognized as that role for us, for sure.
Thank you, go ahead.
Hi, Coach. Last year, Nick Evers, U Sports Report, LeJontay Wester, Jimmy Ward Jr., prominent returners, other guys rotating in. When you look at your unit, could be some key guys as a returner for the Buffs this season?
Well, we got the freshman Q for 6 coming in that we feel like can really help us on the punt return situation, and then we got Farrakhan that's been working back there as well. You know, so I think those two guys, they're young pups, but you know what, they're going to have to grow up fast. And I think definitely on the punt return situation, those two guys are two guys that we're definitely looking at early on to see what's going on. You know, as far as kick return, you know, I'm looking for like a guy like Cam Michael that's got a tremendous amount of speed. You know, he's a 10-500 guy. So, you know, and he did that in high school a lot. You know, he's not as comfortable with returning punts, but, you know, because that's a different animal, returning punts. But you know what, I think we've got, you know, between those three guys, maybe Draylon Miller back deep in the off returner position, because he has some experience from that last year. So, you know, I'm excited about that. And, of course, you know, we're excited about, some additions to our coaching staff that are going to help us in the return game. Because, you know, the returners, it's more than just catching the ball and running fast. You know, there's an art to it. And I think we got some guys that we brought in that can help with that. And I'm certainly in tune with the fact that Coach Prime was disappointed that we only returned one punt for a touchdown last year. You know, and something that was kind of his specialty as a player. You know, we're going to put a lot more emphasis on it. And I think too, to be fair, you know, talking about a guy like Buck, you know, Buck's going to help us in our return game because we don't have to spend so much time on kickoff now. You know, obviously we're going to put time in it and we're going to do the necessary things to get it done. But when your guy's kicking it out the back of the end zone, that means you can put more emphasis on other things. So we're excited about that.
Two more, Matt, go ahead.
Hey, Coach Matt Smith, Independent. There were a couple times last year where the offense got plus 50, kind of no man's land in between, and because, you know, maybe Mata doesn't have the strongest leg, you know, had to go for it fourth long. How are you planning to address that this year? Is it going to be a by-committee thing, or is this truly an open kicking competition completely?
Well, you know, I think here's the deal is, you know, Coach Prime's a big trust guy, and he trusts Mata. And so if it's in close, I mean, somebody's really going to have to pack their lunch if they're going to beat Mata out from in close. You know what I mean? Because he's earned that kind of that trust and everything. But yeah, back deep, you know, we're looking at Buck being able to fill that role. You know, and you know, we've already talked about it that hey, you know, there's going to be some situations where, you know, depending on the game situation, are we going to try to punt them inside the 5, or are we going to give Buck an opportunity to put one through there? And you know, we just got to get him comfortable and feeling good. He's definitely got the leg. You know, we're just working on him, just keeping with his technique on longer field goals and not trying to over kick it, but you know, getting him comfortable with the holders and things like that. So yeah, I think we definitely have a weapon there, and I think, you know, right now my vision is Mata's going to be, you know, the short to mid range guy, and then Buck's going to be the long range guy right now, unless that changes.
Just a quick follow-up to that. Is it tough to be a specialist if you're just like a long range guy, or is that kind of like the long range drivers in golf, where it's just that?
You know, I think Buck understands his role, and I think he just has to embrace what he's got to do. You know, Mata knows what his limitations, and you know, I've sat down and talked to Buck and told him, hey man, this is kind of where we're looking at for you, and you know, I think he's good with that. But there again, you know, if he comes in on the short to mid range stuff and he starts, you know, he beats him out, then because you know, we're going to always keep it competitive. But like I say, it's a trust thing. And right now, Coach trusts Mata, and I trust Mata, you know, because, you know, I've been in those battles with him, and I've seen what he's done under pressure. So, you know, but like I say, I'm excited about the opportunity Buck gives us, you know, and like I said, I think it's going to come down to a situation where it's going to be a game situation where Coach makes a decision. Are we going to kick the long field goal, or are we going to try to punt them in deep? You know, speaking of punting them back, the guy, you know, Greaves that we brought in from Kansas, he's done a great job so far this spring of showing me he can put us in, he can pin folks back inside the 5. Kid has a ton of talent, great work ethic, and he's really doing a great job.
Last one, Jack.
Hey, Coach, Jack too, but just what made him intriguing, just in the transfer portal for you guys to grab?
Well, you know, just watching his performance that you know, when he was at Kansas, knowing what kind of player he was there. And, you know, the biggest thing about him is his ball placement. You know, in this league, you want to punt the ball between the numbers and the sideline. You don't want to punt it out there in the middle of the field. I mean, we saw some bad things happen last year when we mishit some and it went in the middle of the field. So, you know, he does a great job of not only, you know, pinning people inside the 5 and 10 yard line, which is what most people judge a lot of people judge punters on, but you know, he's able to put that ball between the sideline and the numbers pretty consistently and get some great distance downfield with some hang time, which makes it much tougher on them. So, you know, we're just excited about his ball placement and his control over where he wants the ball and what we're asking him to do.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys. Thank you, guys.